Allahu Ekber, Allahu Ekber. Eşhedü en la ilahe illallah. Hayye ale's-salâh. Hayye ale's-salâh. Hayye alel-felah. Hayye alel-felah. Allahu Ekber, Allahu Ekber. La ilahe illallah.
Thank you very much, Serhat Bey. And I want to thank the Rumi Forum for inviting me to this wonderful iftar dinner at such a very auspicious evening, different from almost any other evening in the month. I was asked to say a few words about what I thought about Ramadan, and had no idea that the audience would be so diverse. And obviously, I would not deliver a khutbah as an imam would, and I would not do justice, nor could I possibly say the sort of wonderful philosophical insights of a terrific person like Fethullah Gülen Hoca, whom I've had the great privilege of meeting 2.5 years ago in eastern Pennsylvania. And just to be in his presence and to be reminded of the themes of love and brotherhood and reaching out to others is something that one never forgets. And for those of you not familiar with his work, especially on interfaith dialogue, I strongly recommend that you read up. You can even Google Fethullah Gülen. So I thought what I would do is reflect a little bit about Ramadan and fasting as one of the 5 pillars as virtually all of you know, along with the Creed, the Shahada, the Salat, the prayers, Zakat, the almsgiving, the Hajj, the pilgrimage, fasting is in some ways one of the most challenging of tasks that Muslims face. The Shahada, once you've done it, you've done it. And the prayers, while requiring some discipline, doesn't really take all that much time. And the Hajj is a once in a lifetime affair for most people. And I've learned a great deal about it from my teacher on Islam, Dr. Imaduddin Ahmed, president of the Minaret of Freedom, who was my Islam lecturer for more than a dozen years at the Foreign Service Institute. And so I thought I would use his phrase when he said that the people of the book who practice their faith are Muslims with a small m. I come out of the tradition of my parents' religion, and I started out that way. But as I went to Muslim countries, first Ramadan I encountered in northern Sudan, and I had many friends come by my house and say Ramadan Kareem, and I didn't know what to say. I had 5 years of Arabic and 5 years of area studies, but I didn't have the kind of practical knowledge that one really ought to have in interacting with people. And then a few years later, I was a Fulbright professor in Egypt. And one of the first things I noticed is that Ramadan in Egypt is not the same as Ramadan in northern Sudan. And then I was able, over the years, to go to 25 Muslim countries, alhamdulillah. And I was very, very excited to see how Islam is one religion with one theology, but many different ways of doing it. There is diversity within the unity of the theology, but the diversity of how to do it on a day-to-day basis, including what kind of special foods are prepared for Ramadan, for the iftar. It's a wonderful experience. But we're here in Maryland, and I thought that as I reflected upon this evening, what it is like to fast from the morning until sunset in the evening. I did it only once today because I thought the least that I can do when I have an iftar with you is that I should be fasting today. And one is reminded by one's system that you have to think, and it makes you think. Not only that, it gives you extra time. The time that I normally will spend at breakfast and afterwards and at lunch and afterwards and even early dinner perhaps, I was doing nothing. I was free to think. And I think one of the great benefits of fasting during Ramadan is reflection. You think about what it is all about. You think about the people who don't have enough food to eat. You think about what justice would require for our life within our own country and among countries. So Ramadan, to me, is an opportunity to reflect. And it is very much a blessed time. And it took me quite a while to understand from my Muslim friends that it is also a very joyous occasion, because if you don't grow up in this tradition, you think, oh gee, it must be hard. You live in a place like Sudan and Egypt, where I lived early on, and people arrive late at work and they're grumbling and they're dour and they're anxious to get home and nothing much gets done. And for years I used to tell the American government officials, if you go on a temporary duty mission overseas to the Muslim world, try not to go during Ramadan, because you're going to have trouble with your appointments, and so work around it. And little did I know just how joyous an occasion it is at night, how close the families are, and how even foreign students in the United States from Muslim countries, how they feel homesick, especially during Ramadan, because they want to be with their loved ones, spend most of the night up in friendship and warmth, the kind of feeling that modern American society no longer offers to most of us, and you have to work on it. But it is one of the many things that those of us who are Muslims with a small m can learn from the Muslims with a capital M. This feeling of togetherness and cooperation. And I also thought about the time when I first came to Washington in 1968. There was virtually no appreciation of Islam. A few people knew that there was a mosque on Massachusetts Avenue. By the way, I've been there more than 400 times. I've taken every class there. You all get a khutbah. I also was at Al-Hijra in Arlington a number of times. But over the years, more and more newspaper articles have been written about the Eid-al-Fitr, the Eid-al-Adha. And so there has been an increase in appreciation of what Muslims do. And I was at a conference recently that dealt with problems of European nations and their Muslim minorities. And as I thought about it, I concluded that with all the problems we have in this country, Muslims are better integrated, or better assimilated than they are in Europe, where they tend to live in ethnic ghettos, whether it is your fellow Turks in Germany. Most of them live in groups together. They're not spread all over society. Whether it's the Pakistanis in parts of Leeds and Lancashire and other places in UK, they also live in ghettos. In the United States, we do not tend to have, to my knowledge, Muslim ghettos. They're spread all around, including in my small hometown of Laurel. There are several mosques, and people seem to be relatively well assimilated. And I think this ability to learn more from others is the sort of thing that has helped us as a country on one level to learn from one another. I'm also thinking about the fact that last night was Rosh Hashanah for our Jewish neighbors, and you don't have to know Arabic, Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Hashanah. You can see how very, very close those two are. And through good fortune, tonight we celebrate the beginning of the Eid, mostly tomorrow and the next several days. There is so much that the three Abrahamic religions share in common. They all have elements of fasting, although the Muslim one is much longer and much harder and much more demanding. But they all have it, and they all believe in similar values. And I get so frustrated when I hear some of my less well-informed fellow citizens talk about those Muslims, and they do not know that the Quran contains the 5 books of the Torah, the Psalms of David, the Gospels of the New Christian Testament. They do not know that Muslims look forward to the second coming of Jesus, that Jesus will sit at the right hand of God, not Muhammad, on the days of judgment. They do not know about those many, many commonalities between the religions. And I think that this festival, the Eid-al-Fitr and the Eid-al-Adha coming up in a few weeks, is an opportunity to reach out. And that is one of the wonderful things about the Rumi Forum and its relatives, like the Maryland Institute for Dialogue, with which I first became familiar 3 years ago, to reach out to people in similar situations, but from different religious and different ethnic backgrounds. Ramadan is one dimension of that, and I think it is wonderful And so I'll conclude with what I normally would have begun with, which is to say, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm also going to give you a traditional greeting. G'day. It's not the Islamic or the Arabic one, that's the Australian one. So I'll greet you differently. Thank you, and I want to take this occasion to thank, in particular, the organisers. Beautiful food, beautiful company, around a beautiful program, around the table with beautiful people. And of course, I was very fortunate to listen, as we all were, to Peter describe to us the essence and the beauty that Ramadan is for not only Muslims, but those like ourselves today, all of us of different backgrounds, are partaking in what is a very special occasion, and that of the fast-breaking meal, the iftar. It is a very important tradition in Islam, and this is one aspect that Ramadan entails, is inviting people, not only family, friends, neighbors, travelers, including strangers, those that are less fortunate than us, like the tradition of Abraham, where Abraham would place his tent on the crossroads and open his door. This is a tradition that exists in Judaism, Christianity, but also in the supplication of Muslims. We ask for the blessings of Abraham. Why? Because Abraham would never sit for a meal on his own. He would either stay unfed, hungry, or he would find somebody to eat with. Why? Because it is such a blessed thing to do. And you are all partaking in this. There is also a prophetic tradition that comes to us from Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He says the guest brings with them 10 blessings, and when they leave with only one. The remaining 9 blessings stay with the family. So this is the reward that the host always receives, irrespective of who it is. And this comes to us from Abraham, opening the doorway to his tent at the crossroads so that people may enter his home. Otherwise, he would not eat. I was asked to say a few words about dialogue. I'm new to both DC, to America, and this continent. So I am learning. Of course, people on occasion seem not to understand my accent, but I've made a mission of mine that I will assist all of you one at a time, and we will work on improving yours as well. Very important, very important. One at a time, please. That is my promise, or I will not leave. I've been given a 2-year visa. I could be here longer. They asked me to speak about dialogue. That is my background somewhat, since I've become involved since '92. I had the pleasure of being in the audience of Fethullah Gulen when he came, his first and last time, to Australia. And since '92 I've been involved in what is loosely called the Gulen movement. I gave up my career as an engineer, took up teaching and started building schools across Australia, then moved into interfaith dialogue. And for those, I will not stay too much on that theme, but I would recommend, as Peter has, that you do a little bit of research as to who Fethullah Gulen is. He's motivated me to the point that I've left my homeland to help play a part, and I also have the honour as well as the responsibility of trying to represent him, because he's our honorary president. He's the honorary president of only 2 institutions in the world, one in Turkey and one outside of Turkey, and the one outside of Turkey is the Rumi Forum. So why dialogue? Why is dialogue important? I was asked this question at a similar event in Melbourne when I was addressing a Jewish community, Orthodox, conservatives, progressives amongst them. And one fellow stood up during the question and answer after I gave a bit of a talk, and he said, "I have a simple question. Why dialogue?" I thought for a moment. I said, "Do you want the long answer or do you want the short answer?" He thought, he goes, "I'll take the short answer. Why dialogue?" And I said, "Why not?" So around that same theme, I will keep my address short. Of course, we sometimes have to defend dialogue, but really the contrapositive could be asked as well. Why not? Is it not dialogue that brought the Creator with humanity, through which we receive divine revelation, the principles, the ethics, the morals through which we live, the love that was espoused to us through the messengers, divine and blessed as they are, peace be upon them all, came to us through revelation from God. Through the first dialogue that happened in the universe was from God. So this is the most important example. God came to dialogue with humanity. And beyond that, we see the most blessed and beautiful possessions that we have. If I ask each and every one of you, I'm sure you would say, "They are my children." And that is the end result of a beautiful dialogue that comes about between a husband and a wife. So this, in essence, is how important dialogue is. Dialogue through revelation between man and God, dialogue between husband and wife, leading to a family. This, in essence, dialogue between communities, through individuals, between neighbors, between nation states, can lead to beautiful things. As simple as it is beautiful. And we see this through the example of both revelation, divine dialogue, and we see this through the formation of a family. Now, I put a challenge on a different occasion. It was a similar crowd, a group of Jews, so I'm not too sure what they have with me or what I have with them, but they seem to inspire me on occasion. I spoke with them, and it was, again, an iftar meal. And this challenge has now become global because I've put it to Richmond, Virginia. Now I put it to Rockville, Maryland. We'll see who's going to win. As a result of the blessedness of this occasion, this iftar meal, we've learned something about Ramadan. Many of you have known previously. But there is another meal in Ramadan that is not as well known. And that is the Sahur meal, the pre-fast meal. We've done the iftar meal, the breaking of the fast meal. The Sahur meal exists before dawn, before the sun begins to rise. So we have to finish that in this country approximately, or in this region anyway, approximately coming to about 5. So you get up at 4, prepare your meal, have something, clean and brush your mouth, your teeth, and then you may continue your prayers or stay up or rest a little bit. So we have this meal every day. It is recommended and commended that Muslims get up to do this. And I put this challenge to the audience. I said, may our dialogue increase so much that we may come together not only for the iftar meal, but we would have such a blessed and strong relationship that 200 of us will come together for the Sahur meal. And they too, like you, laughed. I did this to the Catholic. I put the challenge to the Catholics thereafter, and they laughed. Everybody seems to be laughing. It's not a joke. I do hope that our dialogue increases to that point that we can come together. Of course, after I mentioned this, everyone thought I was joking, but a fellow at my table, an Orthodox Jewish friend, Walter, came to me and said, look, I'll start this off. I'm happy to come. As a family, he did so on the first year with his own family, and the second year he brought another 2 families leaving, and in Australia it was quite early. They had to arrive by about 3 a.m. 3 Jewish families left their home about an hour away, so they would have had to have gone at 1:30, travel for get ready to travel for an hour or so and arrive by 3, and they'd stay at our home for until about 4:30 before they left. But this is an indication of the strength of friendship that has come about as a result of dialogue. I did not know this man 2 years before, but as a result, he's come to my home 1 year and brought another 2 families the following year. So this is very important. So this, as jovial and as humorous as it may be, I put this forward not so much as a challenge, but as a wish and a prayer that we can come together. Why? Because it is needed so much. Thank you and good evening.
Now we are going to have a live performance of ney and guitar from Mr. Fatih Yilmaz and Mr. Said. I forgot his last name.